Good morning. My name is Willie Lawson. This is the Morning Report, where straight talk still has a place and where we tell the truth, even when it makes people uncomfortable. Today's truth, the third party presidential fantasy, is just that, a fantasy. Every 4 years, it seems a new savior steps up with zero infrastructure, no congressional allies, and barely a school board win to their name, and claims they're ready to be commander in chief. But this isn't American Idol. This is real life. The presidency isn't entry level, and voters deserve more than feel good speeches and viral tweets. Today, we are going deep. Get your notebook out. We're going to go into the structure of American elections, the math that it takes to kill third parties even before they start, the long history of failed outsider bids, and yes, this recent buzz about Elon Musk starting his own party. This isn't about personalities. It's about systems. All right, let's start with the system itself. In America, we don't do proportional representation. We don't have ranked choice voting at the federal level. What we have is a winner take all, first past the post system. That means unless you come in first, you get nothing. Zip, zero, nada. If a third party candidate gets 15, 20, even 25% of the popular vote in a state, but loses to the Republican or Democrat, they get exactly the same number of electoral votes as the guy who got 0.5%. None. That's not just discouraging, it's mathematically crippling. It means you can't build slowly over time. You either win the whole pie or you don't eat it all. And yet, every few years, some new outsider stands up and says, this time it will be different. It never is. So, unless we change how the system operates, which means that you have to change the Constitution, never going to work that way. Never going to work that way. Now, let's talk about infrastructure. You want to win the presidency? You better have people in all 50 states, not just fans, not just some social media followers, actual staffers, actual canvassers, legal teams, field offices, data teams, ballot access attorneys, state level operatives who know how to navigate election laws, who know how to navigate deadlines, and who know how to navigate county by county voter registration. Do you know who has that? The Republican Democrat Party. You know who doesn't? Virtually every third party campaign in American history. And when they start building it, it's usually too late. So by the time a third party candidate is polling high enough to scare the big boys, they're already behind by tens of millions of dollars and years of local party building. Because politics isn't just about ideas, it's about mechanics. If you can't operate the machine, you will not get to run the country. Okay, I am old enough to go back to 1992. This dude named Ross Perot had his really squeaky voice. Anyway, he was a billionaire businessman from Texas, I believe. He comes in swinging hard. He's got charts, he's got facts, he's got this weird sort of charisma. And for a minute, it was like he might actually make a dent. He's polling over 30% at one point. But then he drops out. And then he comes back. Then he pisses down his legs at the debate. In the end, he gets 19% of the vote still. And do you know how many electoral votes he got? 0. Why? Because the Electoral College doesn't care about second or third place. There's no silver or bronze medal. There's no participation trophy. And because Perot didn't have local ground troops or party backing, he had momentum, but momentum without muscle gets you nowhere. Now, this is a cautionary tale, not a blueprint. This is not how you do it. All right. Let's say a third party candidate somehow wins. Let's just pretend for a moment. Now what? Where are their allies in Congress? Remember Congress? Who's going to sponsor their bills? Who votes to confirm their appointments? They can't just pick me to be the Secretary of Housing and Human and whatever. They can't pick me to be the Secretary of Defense without me going through my Senate confirmation hearings. I can't. Who protects their budget ideas from getting slashed? You can't govern by executive order alone. And we should have been seeing this since 2008. And not for nothing, one of the very first things criticism I had against Donald Trump in 2016 was the number of executive orders. Just ruling like, he called Obama a king by ruling by executive orders, and then came in and did the very same thing. Now, my governor, I want to be completely open here. My governor does a lot of executive orders, but there's one difference. The difference is because he has allies in the state legislature, these executive orders turn into laws. The executive order is almost like an emergency order, and then the law is coming. So it can't just be turned over or stricken down by the next president or the next governor. You can't govern, again, by executive order alone. Not for the long term. We see that even now with Trump, with all the rogue judges out there, putting the kibosh on executive orders. This is not how you do it. You need a party. You need a group of people. You need people on the ground. You need a bench. What third party candidates have instead? They have Twitter accounts. They have podcasts. They have vague promises. That's not a government. It's a newsletter. And most voters know this. Deep down, they do. That's why no matter how much they love the message, they hesitate to pull the third party lever. Because they know that president would be politically naked on day one. People know that. One of the biggest mistakes third-party candidates make is assuming that Americans vote on logic. We don't. Never have. We vote based on tribe, especially now, on tradition, on fear, our gut instincts, and vibes. Now, that might not sound noble, might not sound like how you run a country, but it's real. The two major parties are woven into American life like church, like football, soccer, football, and Walmart. They've got deep roots. They have brand loyalty that's been passed down through generations. And a third party candidate, without any of that stuff, shows up and says, Hey, I'm different. Different is not going to be enough unless you've got some compelling cultural narrative and a real plan to dismantle tribal loyalty. Good luck. You're not a threat. You're a sideshow. And guess what? Nobody installs the juggler as president. Here's the other thing. Third party candidates don't just lose, they often help the side they hate the most. Just ask Ralph Nader. His Green Party run helped tip the balance here in Florida, allowing George W. Bush to squeak past Al Gore. Things would have been much different, wouldn't they? Oh, aside, I was in a band called Mod at that point, and Ralph Nader had spoken at University of South Florida, and the band I was in, I was going to say my band, the band that I was in played the after party there, and I got a chance to meet Ralph Nader, and I told him that my uncle owned a Corvair, and the dinosaurs in the room will get that. Anyway, so and that's my brush with semi greatness. So in 2016, many on the left accused Jill Stein of doing the very same thing for Donald Trump. Now, before I say the next thing, I've got to tell you that this sounds terrible. Some of my best friends are libertarians, and I feel I'm becoming a little bit more libertarian every day. But I've been saying the very same thing about libertarians and third parties forever, and they know that. So even libertarians who often think they're pulling from both parties usually end up hurting the right more often than not. Because libertarians who are real libertarians, like my friend Dwayne Lester, are incredibly logical. His only mistake is that he thinks other people are too. I think he knows. I guess he knows they're not. But I think, but I guess he prays that when something this important, they'd be able to, with the facts, be able to figure it out. And what he's learning is that they don't. So you end up hurting more often the right than the left, siphoning off protest votes that could have gone to the Republican reformers. How often are the Republican reformers? Well, that's something else we have to talk about. That's another show. The spoiler effect is real. And it makes third party candidates toxic to the very voters who might otherwise support them. Now, don't get it twisted. Many third party candidates say things Americans desperately need to hear. They talk about overspending, they talk about overreach, they talk about these endless wars, the deep state, the surveillance state, this horrific broken tax system, the failure in public education, the insanity of open borders. But that message, unfortunately, even when it's spot on, gets buried under the weight of impossible math. Because in America, you don't get past go without 270 electoral votes. And the moment you split the anti-establishment vote, you all lose. It's not about hating the message. No, not at all. It's about refusing to waste our last good shot on someone or something with no path to win. And now this is really the crux of this entire video. Let's take a hard look at how real political power is built in this country. Not imagined, not fantasized, but actually built. You don't start at the top. You start local. That's what the Democrats figured out in the 1970s. That's what the religious right figured out in the 1980s. They didn't just protest. They did things like they ran for school board. I say that all the time. Start there. It's not the most sexy thing, but you have to do it. They ran for city council. They ran for county commissioner. They ran for state rep. They ran for state senate. They ran for mayor. They got their hands dirty in the weeds of local politics. And 20 years later, they were running entire states. When I was running for county commissioner, I went before the personal tribunal of a local newspaper. Actually, I went through a couple of tribunals, and the person who I was talking to, interviewing me, basically said that he asked me about abortion. Now I'm running for county commission. He asked me about abortion, and I thought I was ready. And I said, I don't see a point where we're going to be talking about abortion at county commission. And he said, hey, listen, that may be true, but what often happens is people start local and then they move on to bigger and bigger things. So you may end up in the state legislature from here, because he knew that most people who start in politics, keep going in politics, right? And as I'm listening to him, I'm kind of pissed because I thought I had that move where I didn't have to talk about it. I wanted to talk about it. I mean, I would have talked about it, and I ended up talking about it anyway. But he said, we need to find out where you're going to be if you're going to continue on that, on your political path. So I told him I was pro-life. I did not get the recommendation of that newspaper. I did not. I didn't get the recommendation of any newspaper, as a matter of fact. And basically because of that reason. So yes, everybody knows that you got to start at school board, you got to start at city council, county commission, state rep, state senate, mayor. Everybody knows that. So you got to get your hands dirty in the weeds of political politics. And later, these people were running the states. Third-party movements, and unfortunately, especially the Libertarians and the Green Party, have mostly, not entirely, but mostly skipped this part. They think if they nail the national message, the rest will follow that. It'll somehow go top down. But this country doesn't work like that. America isn't just a republic. It's 50 republics and thousands of municipalities. If you're not winning locally, you're not winning nationally. Full stop. In this culture, here's how we get caught up. Online buzz is not real world momentum. You can have millions of followers, viral tweets, and passionate podcasts, and still not register above 1% in actual voting booths. That's kind of the curse of modern digital politics. It gives candidates this illusion of support. They think digital applause is the same as electoral traction. But those are two different things. Online, you're reaching the folks that are already converted, people who are looking for you. They're already outraged. They're already fringe. But politics requires persuasion. It requires meeting people who don't agree with you and getting them to join you and your cause anyway. And that doesn't happen on Reddit or an X post. That happens at the Rotary clubs, at the gun ranges, at the barbershops, at the neighborhood cookouts. And if your entire campaign is built on digital engagement, you're not a political threat. You're an influencer with an expensive hobby. I can hear some of you now who are saying, the system is rigged. It's rigged. And many third-party backers often scream that the system is rigged. And to be fair, the two-party system does defend itself. It builds barriers to ballot access. It hogs the debate stages. It corners media coverage. It protects its own. But is that rigged? Or is it just reality? Any system built on competition will entrench itself over time. That's not unique to politics. Try launching a soda brand tomorrow and see how fast Coca-Cola ignores you, then crushes you at the shelf level with discounts and shelf placement. The system isn't broken, it's just hard. And the people yelling rigged often just don't want to do the grunt work of building something from the ground up. You want to challenge the status quo? Awesome. Bring the tools, not just the hashtags. All right, now this whole Elon Musk thing. Elon Musk has money. He's got money manny. He's got influence. He's got a massive following. He can tweet one word and crash a stock or spike a brand. If Elon Musk tweeted, go to fightbackmedia.com, it would crash my little website. It would crash it. If Elon Musk said, subscribe to the Morning Report and had the link to the Morning Report, I would have 1 million subscribers in an afternoon. So that's a lot of online influence. So naturally, people have speculated, and we've heard a little bit about it, about Elon starting a political party. Well, let's think about that. First of all, what will they call it? The techno realist, the pragmatic future, or the X party? Whatever it is, without the infrastructure that we talked about, it goes nowhere. You can't PayPal your way onto the ballot in 50 states. You can't Tesla your way into a county clerk's office. And you can't even Neuralink your way into people's hearts. Elon's ideas may indeed have merit. His instincts might even be right. But politics isn't about people. Excuse me. But politics is about people, not code, about people. And if you don't know how to shake hands, show up at town halls, build trust one precinct at a time, that rocket never leaves the launch pad. Now, people often assume that if a billionaire jumps into politics, they can buy their way to relevance. But let's look at that. Ross Perot had money, and he still lost. Recently, Michael Bloomberg has more money than any human should legally have. He didn't win a single state in 2020, despite spending $8 billion. Tom Steyer, another billionaire who ran in 2020 that you don't even remember, right? Money helps, but it can't buy enthusiasm, movement, or trust. Politics is about time and proximity. How much time do you spend? How close you are. It's about knocking doors, sitting in PTA meetings, hosting fish fries and prayer breakfasts. That's how you win votes in America. It's what we call retail politics. It's not another electric truck or a meme. One of the things third-party candidates, their appeal is often because they promise to save the country from a broken system. We don't need saviors. Not this kind of saviors for sure. We need workers. We need servants. We need people who understand how legislation works and can lead coalitions without cults of personality. Every time a charismatic outsider shows up with no team and no plan, just vibes, they end up attracting disillusioned voters who deserve better. You can't lead a nation by branding yourself as anti-everything. You lead it by understanding what holds it together and how to reform it without burning it all down. The Constitution wasn't written for kings. And third party messiahs often flirt with exactly that. All right, let's get back to a crucial point. If your third party candidate actually wins, how I don't know, that's a big if they win. What happens next? Do they magically pass laws? Well, no. They have to work with Congress. And guess what? Congress is still controlled by the two major parties, with few exceptions. Without members in the House and the Senate, your president becomes an emperor without an empire, a figurehead who can make speeches but can't move legislation. You want change? Build a congressional bench. If your party can't get one governor, one senator, one high profile city mayor, then you're not a political party. You're a political theme. Again, please, Dwayne, forgive me. Let's talk bluntly about the Libertarian Party. It's been around for decades. They've run in every election since 1972. They've had articulate candidates like Harry Brown, viral ones like Gary Johnson, and even recruited big names like Justin Amash. Yet, here we are, still no congressional representation, still no governorships, still no state level infrastructure to speak of. Why? Because the Libertarians, like so many other third parties, aim way too high, way too fast. Instead of winning city council seats, they dream about winning the Oval Office. Instead of growing roots, they chase Twitter impressions. That's not a party. That's performance art. Because here's what real political traction looks like: local races, registered voters, reliable donors, data operations, legal compliance, a ground game. You don't get any of that by announcing a presidential campaign with no map, no down ballot strategy, and no base. You win the future by starting now, not in 4 years, but today. Register your neighbors, run for local office, volunteer for a school board campaign, learn what it takes to get on a ballot, build the damn thing piece by piece, because that's how the left did it. And if conservatives or independents want to compete, they better be willing to do the work just as hard. All right, let's deal with this illusion of starting a party every 4 years. It's not just an illusion, it's a delusion. A real political party isn't just a ballot label. Like I said before, it's a machine that organizes, that fundraises, that trains candidates, that tracks data, that disciplines its members. Republicans and Democrats have been building their machines for over 150 years. They have precinct captains in every zip code, or most zip codes anyway. I was a precinct captain for this zip code. They know which local union halls, churches, barbershops, bingo nights move votes. You don't build that kind of power by printing signs and launching a website. And you definitely don't build it by showing up every 4 years and saying, hey, vote for me. I'm different. That's not a political party. That's a brand stunt. And voters, especially hard working class voters, can spot that crap from a mile away. All right, here's another brutal reality. Just getting your name on a ballot is a nightmare if you're not part of the big two. Every state has different requirements. When we talked about America being a republic, it's 50 republics, right? Every state has different requirements, from signatures to deadlines to fees. In some states, you need over 100,000 valid signatures, not just names, not email addresses, valid voter signatures, collected under strict rules, often in the heat of summer, with armies of lawyers watching. And if you mess up one form, you're disqualified. If your address format is wrong, disqualified. If your notary isn't certified in the right way, you guessed it, disqualified. And even if you make it onto the ballot, you might not be on every ballot, which means voters in some states can't even choose you. That's not voter suppression. That's logistics. And if your campaign isn't ready to handle it, then you're not ready to run the country. All right, let's say that somehow you manage to get on the ballot. Now you want to be in the presidential debates. Good luck. The Commission on Presidential Debates requires a candidate to poll at 15% nationally to be included. It sounds reasonable until you realize how hard it is to hit that number without being in the debates in the first place. It's really a catch-22. It's like, we need people with experience. Well, how do I get experience? You got to get a job. Well, how do I get a job if I don't have any experience? It's that catch-22. Ross Perot made it in 1992 because of the major parties. He thought he'd help their cause. After that, they slammed the door shut. And since then, no third-party candidate has been allowed back on the stage. Gary Johnson in 2012 and 2016 begged, pleaded, polled at 9%, and still couldn't break through. So what happens? The media ignores you. The public forgets you, and your campaign dies in the shadows. This isn't oppression. This is the reality of centralized media power. Here's the truth. Most voters are not ideologically loyal. They're strategically loyal. They don't vote for the perfect candidate because the perfect candidate doesn't exist. They vote to stop the worst one. Yes, we are in a system that we pick the lesser of two evils. We say that all the time. We say this every cycle. I don't love him, but I can't let the other guy win. And that's where third parties fail. We talked about that. Not because people don't like the message, because they fear they're wasting their vote. It's called vote utility. And until a third party can offer more utility than a major party candidate, they won't win. Period. Voters are rational. They're emotional, yes, but they're not stupid. They've watched spoiler after spoiler hand elections to their enemies, and they're just not going to do it again. We all want the unicorn, the magical candidate who's honest, bold, and outside the system, and capable of beating both parties. That's the whole Elon Musk fantasy. That's the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. fantasy. That's the every 4 years third party temptation. But unicorns don't exist, which is amazing that unicorns don't exist and giraffes do. You know, they don't exist. Not in real politics. The candidates who win are the ones who build coalitions, who compromise when needed, who fight when it counts, who know how to pass bills, navigate bureaucracy, and inspire at scale. The idea of one man or woman coming in and draining the swamp with no help, no allies, and no party is comic book stuff. And real governance is not a comic book. So let's go a little deeper into the mechanics. Even if a third-party candidate wins the presidency, they need governors and legislatures to back them. And without allies at the state level, your federal agenda becomes a PR tour. You can't enforce federal priorities without governors, state attorney generals, and local officials playing ball. And most third parties, they can't win a sheriff's race let alone a governor's mansion. And that's not a smear. That's been the reality. Look at your own state. When's the last time a third party candidate even came close to a statewide office? Winning a presidency without a state level backup is like piloting a 747 with no landing gear. Sooner or later, you crash. Here's another a main blind spot for a lot of third party candidates. And I saw this during the Tea Party movement for sure. They think the culture war doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, some of the people that I was talking to at the time and partnering with, people like my dear friend Eric Odom, they only want to talk about economics or decentralization or tax reform. And they ignore what most voters care about: faith, family, education, patriotism, crime, this gender ideology craziness. If you can't speak to those issues clearly and courageously, you don't win hearts. You might win think tank applause, but not middle class trust. And if you want to lead the country, you had better understand what the country is actually arguing about. Right now, that's not monetary policy. Parental rights, free speech. It's the erosion of American identity. And if you ignore that, you've lost before you begin. America needs more movements, not mascots. A third party presidential candidate with no network is just a mascot. It might make you feel good, make great YouTube clips, and land interviews, but they don't build anything that lasts. Movements, by contrast, start local. Start local. I'll say it again: start local. They build trust. They run candidates. They develop leadership pipelines. They sustain pressure over time. The Tea Party became a movement, and then a wave election. School choice advocates became a movement, and now they're flipping state legislatures. That's how you win. Not with fantasy tickets or oh, I hate this so much. This whole fantasy ticket thing, like, what if this happens every 4 years? I think that if Trump could get Candace Owens as his vice president, and then Officer Tatum as the Secretary of Defense, and and they're sort of treating the whole thing like it's some sort of fantasy football or rotisserie baseball thing. That's not how you win. Or with billionaire vanity projects. But you win with grassroots sweat and generational investments. Mascots fade. Movements fight. So if you're serious about changing the country, don't start by launching a presidential bid. Please don't do that. You start by running for something small and winning. And then you run again and again, and you recruit others. Then you build a local party, then a state party, then a national presence, then maybe, just maybe, the White House. But if you're not willing to do that, get out the way. Because we don't have time for fantasy. Not with the economy in shambles, not with the border wide open. Our kids are being propagandized. Our debt is spiraling into generational theft. We need leaders, not slogans. Builders, not brands. We need patriots, not personalities. America is indeed worth saving, but only if we're willing to do the hard work to save her. All right, folks, in closing, here's the thing that we have to remember. America doesn't need a third party every 4 years. America needs accountability every single day. And that doesn't come from some unicorn candidates who parachute in with no plan. It comes from parents speaking at school board meetings. It comes from small business owners holding local officials accountable. It comes from neighbors organizing block by block to protect their values. The founders gave us tools, not perfect tools, but powerful ones. Local elections, state constitutions, county charters and county commissions, the ability to nullify bad laws through pressure, protest, and participation. If third-party enthusiasts want real change, they don't need a savior. They need to become soldiers, not in violence, but in vigilance, in civic duty, in real work. So if you're not willing to fight for the school board, don't ask for the White House. And this is not cynicism talking. It's strategy. And it's the only way we win. This has been the Morning Report. My name is Willie Lawson. Let's get to work.